City of Northglenn, Channel 8, keeping you informed of events in your community.
Joanna, could you call the roll, please?
Mayor Downing is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Dodge?
Here.
Councilmember Sensinger? Here. Councilmember Malika?
Here.
Councilmember Sowers?
Here.
Councilmember Joe Brown?
Here.
Councilmember Becky Brown?
Here.
Councilmember Whitman?
Here.
Councilmember Escobar?
Here.
Okay, thank you everyone for being here, and we will dive right into our one topic, but a very important topic, the Connect Northglenn Master Plan. Brooke?
Good evening, everybody. I'll introduce here Sam Piper and Ashley Cotty. Sam is with Alta and Ashley is obviously with the planning department, and I'm going to hand it over to them tonight to lead the conversation, and I'll be here to help answer your questions.
Thank you. Do you want to give an introduction too, or should I just?
No, jump right in.
Okay.
See how we just handed it?
We're very delighted here, right? Well, good to see everyone again. It's been about a month since we last had a presentation regarding the bicycle and pedestrian master plan here in Northglenn, and we have made steady progress since we last met, so we just want to give you an update on what we have accomplished thus far. But the bulk of the meeting tonight is to really get feedback. Feedback about what your goals are generally for the city of Northglenn. What are some of your priorities that we can look at our planning effort and see if that we can find some synergies between your overall goals and the goals of this planning effort. And then what we also want to determine is if there's any specific areas that you want us to zoom in on and focus on. So in order to get at some of those more detailed questions, we've developed a survey. We sent that out prior to the meeting, and thank you to folks that did have the opportunity to respond to that. And those that didn't, we're just going to run through the questions tonight and see if we can get some of those answers, which will be incredibly helpful for us as we go through the project. So I just wanted to give you all an update about the schedule. So here in May now, who would have guessed that we would have a big snowstorm only 2 days ago, but it is. We have reached May, and we've made steady progress on the existing conditions analysis. So again, that's just setting a baseline for understanding walking and bicycling conditions in the city of Northglenn. And as we go into June, we'll begin to determine the opportunities and challenges to walking and biking. So again, what we're doing first is understanding existing conditions. And then as we move into the next phase, it's looking at those conditions. Where are there opportunities for improvement? What are some of the challenges to improving walking and bicycling in the community? So that existing conditions inventory, the draft of that will actually be delivered next week to the steering committee, and I just wanted to touch upon some of the contents of that. So it's a base map, so it's graphically showing where the destinations in the community, where our trails and the sidewalk conditions. We did a destinations exercise. So the reason this project came to fruition was the HEAL program that the city's involved with. And so we actually looked at where the destinations are in the community and what dimensions of health and wellness those destinations relate to. And so we've developed a map that shows the concentration of those dimensions which can help Northglenn citizens achieve total health in the community. We're conducting counts this month, so we're going out and we're actually collecting data to understand where there's demand for walking and bicycling citywide. And we're also assessing the existing supply of biking facilities and the existing supply of walking facilities. Basically, how comfortable is it to walk and bike on different streets in the city? And then rounding that out with an analysis of 5 years of crash data. So we're looking at crash data collected by the city and trying to determine some overall trends. We have a really busy couple months of public engagement coming up, so the whole team is going to be engaged with this, and what that entails is a public meeting. So this is a big public meeting that we've got next week. If you can spread the words to your constituents and your family and friends, please encourage them to come. We have walking and bicycling audits. We also have mobile meetings. So if you look in the back of the room there, we've brought the vinyl map. So that will be our mobile meeting space that we'll be bringing out to the community at different events. So again, a lot of public engagement which is going on. And these are the dates. You do have this in your packet, so I won't go through each of them individually, but if you do have an opportunity, if you're free one of those evenings or one of those afternoons to join us, we'd love to have you there in person, and you can see the public providing input, and we'd also ask you the same questions we're asking them. So please do come visit us if you have a chance. And the mobile meetings. So we've got two kind of official Alta-led mobile meetings, and Ashley will also be running mobile meetings as part of city staff. So the two official ones, we're going to be at the Food Truck Festival. So I just heard 30,000 people are expected to attend, so who knows how much engagement we'll actually be able to get from that. A whole map maybe full of Post-its.
How do you plan on engaging them?
So what we're doing is we're going to take the big mobile map and we're going to have a legend which corresponds to bicycle improvements and to pedestrian improvements, and also if they'd like to see a new trail improvement. And so those are all going to be color-coded to different Post-its. So say green is trail, orange is pedestrian, red is bicyclist. And what we'll ask people to do is, if you want to see that type of improvement, place a Post-it on the map where you want to see it, and then on the Post-it write the improvement that you actually want to see.
Is there any interactive, like internet or anything like that? That one thing we did last year where they had that. That was really cool.
Yeah, so at those meetings, it'll just be focused on the map, but what we're actually going to show you is we've developed an online input map, which I'm just going to run through quickly, but that is a great complement to these in-person meetings because basically it allows people to provide input on their own time.
And we'll have little project business cards, the size of business cards with the project website that they can then go to at home and do the online input. We'll have both a survey and an online mapping tool that they can kind of follow up with.
Are we doing anything special, like maybe to the schools or anything like that?
We have engaged Adams 12. They are coming on our walk audit and they're planning to send staff to our public meetings, so.
But what about the schools in our community? That's what
That's what the focus is on.
okay, because I really want to make sure, since we have so many limited, contacts this time, that we get to the people that are probably, more likely or will be rah-rah Siskiyou on the trails. And that's going to be our people with the kids, and other residents, but they're going to be our major drivers, and we need to figure out how to get them out. We don't have a good record of community involvement in these types of issues.
Okay.
And I would hate to see us get 30 votes or 30 decisions made and think that that is, acceptable community output.
Okay, thank you for that. And in addition to the online input map, it's very helpful.
Yeah.
We need to direct this, and this is honestly the feedback we're hoping to get for different questions we have this evening. So really, thank you for that.
I'll have none of those answers, but.
Okay. So we also have an online survey. It's trying to get at targeted questions, and we've been developing, different lists and people that we can email that to, so that we can ensure broad-based participation in that as well. So I just wanted to, I don't know, has anyone had a chance to look at the website, or is this the first time for everyone? So the project has been branded Connect Northglenn. That was one of the things we heard at the first council meeting, and connectivity is incredibly important goal generally for the community, so we really thought that resonated well with this particular planning effort. But the homepage.
That's actually the Get Involved page.
I'm sorry. That's fine.
I had left it on there, so that's my fault.
So again, the homepage This is the base map showing the destinations in the community. This is a schedule so that the public can follow along with the planning process. Here is a link to the online input map, which I'll show you quickly how that works. And then we'll be posting the council packets so that the public can see the progress that we're making here at the council meetings as well. And then I'll just, on the Get Involved page, it's similar information, but this is specific to how people can get engaged with the project. So again, it's the online input map, information about our different in-person events, so community walk audit, public meetings, mobile meetings. And then if the community wants to send us an email, we have a contact form, and then they can write a comment too. So this is the link to the online input map. So again, this is linked directly on the website, and we've sent emails out, included it in the monthly newsletter. And I'll just walk through quickly how this works, but I encourage you all go home and, this is your homework, okay? Put 3 comments down on this. We'd really appreciate it. And then share it with your friends and family too. But if you click Get Started, and say you want to draw a walking and bicycling route, so you click that. And let's say that you want to draw a route that's safe and comfortable. And again, it's a walking route, so you can click on that. And let's say that you think walking on Muriel between Pearl and Grant is pretty comfortable. And you want to just acknowledge that on the map, so you can draw your line. You can name it, walk to school. You can write a comment, sidewalks, good condition. And even if you have a picture that from your walk to school on your phone, you can upload that here too. So just click choose file, grab it, you can post it, and then click save. I'm not going to save because the map's live. That would go in, and we want to make sure the data is accurate. In addition to drawing those lines, we can go back and we can add difficult locations. So again, it's point locations that are difficult for walking or bicycling. So that can be more your intersection conditions, or if there's a place where someone in your ward might want to cross the street but there's no crossing, they might put a dot down there. Yeah?
Who's drawn all the green lines so far?
So we also uploaded some base information to the map. So these are Northglenn's trails. And then we also wanted to upload trails in surrounding communities to show that there's connectivity between.
So what color is it going to be once, like if you would have saved that, would it have been green as well?
No, so I'll zoom. So people have already added input. So this is someone drew a safe and comfortable walking route. So that's a blue line. And you can click on that and actually see what they thought. And what's also neat is that if someone already drew what you were thinking, rather than having to redraw it, type it in, you can just vote for it, and we'll collect a tally of all that on the back end. And that'll be really helpful for prioritization. So if we get a lot of hits on one particular drawing, we'll be able to say, hey, that's a place where you need to really focus on. And then, people have already drawn points, so I'll zoom in here, and people can write as much as they want. So this person had a pretty lengthy summary of the condition there.
3 people voted for that.
Yep, and so that's another cool thing. You can see what other people thought. And so beyond just providing your own input, you can see what other people are thinking. Yeah.
That I think has been a problem for a long time.
This intersection here?
Yeah. Well, it basically ends right there, and the sidewalk begins. You can take the sidewalk, but there's nothing. The dog park's on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
People want to go straight at the mid-block crossing, and
Right.
we're not going to put a crosswalk there necessarily, so that's why it's an issue.
Okay.
So that's where identification of where the trail continues, because we walk that one a lot.
You mean
Yeah.
like wayfinding?
Wayfinding, that's the word. That's nice.
Well, it sounds like that is an issue then that we'll want to look at in more detail. Okay.
Question on the report. So will council put a report that shows all of the comments, will it summarize them, or just do an overview of them?
Yeah, so we'll provide kind of a digestible summary of the information, and what we'll go into the report is we're trying to zoom in on the areas that got a concentration of comments. We'll provide all of the data, and actually I think this will be a useful data set for you guys going forward in general. But what we'll try to do in the report is what are the big takeaways, and make that easy for you to understand. Any other questions on that?
No, I was just going to say, we do have a study session scheduled in July, I believe mid-July, to review the feedback that we received both online and at our mobile meetings and public meetings. So we'll be coming back to you in about 2 months.
I'm sorry, I missed it. You can go in and click on any one of those and see what the other comments were, right?
Yep.
Okay. And then go for it.
Yep.
Question.
Sure.
I know that it sounds like we're doing some outreach to Adams 12. How engaged are we going to be with those families? Because some of those families may not live in Northglenn and bring their children into our city for school. And so obviously I think their opinion is going to be important as well. So is there a plan for engaging parents of students at our schools?
We can look a little closer at that. We did not have a specific plan to reach out to the parents. We can work with the Adams 12 and see if we can do some type of handout to the kids, because I know they do that, and see if that's a possibility. We can definitely look into that.
Okay, so thank you.
Will we,
No, this is directed to Brooke. First and third Wednesday is the school board meeting.
Okay.
I'll be at this one, this coming Wednesday. If you have any information that you want me to at least give out to the staff.
We will definitely get that.
Emphasize the fact that this, is going to be very important to the community. I think that may carry a little weight.
We will do that.
Sure.
That's
I
great.
even have community meeting, just quarter-size sheets that I can give you as
Yeah,
staff before you leave.
just something that they can put their hands to if they want to.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
that's awesome. I was wondering if you could get that all done before midterm.
We'll try.
I can hand them out in Alley.
Yeah, absolutely. And if not, there's always the follow-up online survey and input map as well, so.
I think it's exciting that we have been promoting this and to see that we're already getting feedback.
It's comforting.
Yeah, so again, if you could help us to promote that, it'll only get more and more use, so. Oh, yeah, sure.
Just another quick question. How's that going to work? Because you have some blues up there. What if somebody comes by and says, wait, that's actually not that safe? Does that turn to orange, or what happens to that route if somebody disagrees and believes that's an unsafe route, actually?
So they would actually draw a line of a different color over it, and what we try to see on the back end is, okay, which one had more votes? So is it one for each of them, and then it's kind of split? And then we can make an assessment, from our professional judgment, which it is. But if someone draws a red line and then 5 people vote on that, only one drew the blue, then we can go that way. And that's a really good point to make, that, as you all know, people walking and bicycling, we've got different comfort levels. And so what might be comfortable for one person that's an experienced recreational bicyclist may not be comfortable for someone biking with their kids and thinking about, would my child be comfortable? So that's a really good point.
Is it a mobile app? Can I put it on my phone so that when I'm walking I can start drawing red signs?
But not when you're crossing the street. Got to put it down in that.
Oh, we can do that when I try to cross Washington
Yeah.
in the middle.
It's not an app, but it is mobile friendly.
Okay.
So it kind of adjusts and is really, I've tried it on my phone, and it's pretty easy to work with, so.
For the record, I think red and blue actually makes purple, not orange. I was just- So we have that on.
And you have small kids.
It's like-
You should know
I
that.
know.
We were going to catch that, so I appreciate you clarifying.
Thank you, Mr. Malcolm.
Great. Well, do have those questions to work through, and I think we should just move right over to it. So Ashley's going to help me record some of the answers, and if you already answered, when we come around the room, it's going to be easiest if we just go person by person. And if you've already gone, you can just say skip, okay? So we broke questions up into 3 different categories. And again, this is getting at your overall goals, your specific goals for this project, how this project can achieve your goals, and then what are your priorities. So looking at vision and expectation, focus areas, and then focusing on implementation. When we get to that stage in the project, where should we be, what should we be really drilling down on. So we can skip number 1, all right? We'll move right to 2. So this question is a broad one, not specific to Connect Northglenn, but what are your goals for the city of Northglenn? So we'll start on the left, and we'll just kind of go around the room. What I've done is I've pre-populated the list. If you did answer the survey, those responses are already up here. And those can kind of, if yours is already up there, you just say, put a check next to one of them, so.
So I think a little bit more specific to this one, it kind of goes back to the business side is, I don't think we make it walkable and easy for people to get to our businesses in some of the areas. And for me, the big thing has been businesses, getting them a little bit more visibility by people being able to walk. So I'd like to see that improved. And then I think just overall, we've been kind of striving towards improving the look of the city, whether that's through signage or improving the way like Huron Center and some of the ways that our city looks, I think is still really important and plays into all of the bicycle and walking.
Okay, so some branding.
I don't know if I'd stretch it to say branding as much as I just would say, I think some people that are newer might not know how to get around to certain places.
Okay.
Or as we start talking about some of the naming, which I suppose is a little branding, but some of our centers, some of our newer people don't really know all of the centers by name, and they're not always the best for visibility.
Great. So wayfinding, it sounds like, specifically would be good.
I didn't write any of those down, so I wasn't one of the surveyors. And
Okay.
I'm just really curious about growth, development, and diversity.
That was a goal for somebody.
No, I mean, that's just,
Pretty,
they're all very broad.
Very broad.
What about growth? What about development? What about diversity? But anyway, the improved infrastructure would be mine.
Okay.
I actually completed the survey.
Thank you.
I know, I'm really kind of proud of myself. Business is slow. I don't know what to do with myself. I was improve infrastructure and improve quality of life.
Thank you.
I completed as well, and I think I focused on the growth, development, and diversity, and improve infrastructure.
Okay. Thank you.
I didn't. So there was one person that didn't complete it, right? It's me. I'm gonna go with Marcy on the appearance of the city, the looks of the city.
I'm going to go with fiscally responsible leadership leading to community pride.
Say it, Mr.
No, there's no shaming. It was just a conversation.
No, I did it this time. There is shaming.
I answered the survey, but I did meet resident needs and improve infrastructure both.
Okay, great. So what I'm seeing here is that there's the people that did respond, everyone's pretty consistent with those, and just a few more about the look of the city, so that's really helpful. And then thinking about this plan specifically, so a bicycle and pedestrian master plan, how can this plan help to achieve those overall goals that you listed? And so these were some of the things that we've already recorded: less dependency on cars to get to work, easier business access, healthier lifestyles. It's the key. If we don't find infrastructure for safe alternative travel, we don't grow. So we'll kind of go around the room again.
Well, I guess a couple of things. At our retreat, we kept talking about live, work, play.
Yeah.
I think we struggle with that here just because we're trying to develop those types of communities, and what we have right now, we still don't have that total walkability. We've talked about, some of us have even questioned the bridge, and we were surprised by stats for crossing over I-25, the pedestrian bridge. And I guess the other side that I'd say is, this really made me realize that I don't know our trails very well. I haven't walked them myself. And so I found it even difficult to think about what improvements were necessary, just because I am the driver. I don't get out and walk them, and I walk the small little area in my neighborhood. So I probably need to do that, so I can give better input.
Thank you.
The number one complaint I get in my ward is that the narrow sidewalks, barely enough to walk you, not your dog or your friend. Just a one-person walkway. Now, if we can improve bike mobility, and if we can widen those sidewalks, it would change the world in my ward.
Great. Yeah, and I think when we get at that kind of zooming in question, I would ask you, where are some key places where we should think about that in the short term for priorities of sidewalk widening? But that's a really good point. I saw it today. A group of friends walked, one on the sidewalk, four on the street, so it's a need for sure.
I guess the priority would have to be the area that's identified as the one we're going to make the investment in, because for me to say, come do Melody Drive when the investment is going to be the park and ride, doesn't make a lot of sense. It would have to be where the interest lies, or where the demand is a better way to say it, rather than what I want or what my neighbor wants.
That's a good point. To take an objective approach to that identification demand. Okay.
I think that it's imperative. We have to figure out, we don't have a very friendly city for walking and biking without taking people out. We have to determine what we want and the infrastructure for it, or we might as well just stop. Do we want to go up and around the new Justice Center and down through the marketplace, which I know what that's going to be in my mind, and then back around to the civic campus, It's the infrastructure that's most important to me.
Great. Thank you.
I spoke to the millennial lifestyle of it being less dependency on cars and this healthier lifestyle. So use of public transportation, using the trails that go through that we can get to, say, light rails, and so forth.
So connections to those.
Yeah, and then your ability to get around town or that sort of thing, so you don't have to use cars.
And less, make it easier to not have to drive.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
I think I'm with Marcy on this one a little bit, in that I think maybe I need to go walk some more. From my perspective, I think we're fabulously connected. You can get from both sides of the highway, you can get all the way around. If I want to go for a walk, I can go from my apartment over here on Huron over to City Hall without any problem. I can go to the new walk. I can go anywhere I want in our city by walking and feeling safe to do so.
Okay.
I don't ride a bicycle. Our streets are narrow, so putting in bike lanes I am absolutely against, because already we have issues with the width of our sidewalk. I think Melody Drive, there'd be room for on Melody because it's so wide. Beyond that, so down Washington, our major thoroughfares, it just doesn't make sense to me. It looks like it would cause more problems. So I think trying to find out if there are solutions or ways that we can make some of those improvements is a good idea. But we just have so much going on in the city right now that this is, I hate to say it, this is not one of my top priorities.
Okay.
But again, I think, from my perspective, I can go anywhere I want. I can walk anywhere in the city that I want to walk. So, to me, it's good.
Okay.
Again, I don't ride the bike, so the bike, I'm sure, has more difficulties, especially for those who aren't comfortable riding with traffic.
All right, well, we appreciate that feedback. Thank you.
I think it's certainly going to open the eyes to a lot of people that are, like Marcy and me, and we're drivers, I know to park where I would park twice and back home with my dogs. That's the walking I do, But I think with,
My guy.
with this program, it's 1.3 miles, by the way. But with this program, I think a lot of people are going to be opened up to see what's going on out there. I mean, for 25 years, I've been thinking I should take my bike and ride the trails.
Maybe this will be the chance for that.
Too lazy to do it.
You bought the bike 5 years ago, it's in the garage.
So maybe listen to the public's goals as they come out through the
Yeah.
project, okay?
I think something that's not being talked about right now and is a little bit of what everyone else is saying is the marketing piece of what this is. This is going to be a huge asset if we can figure out how to make Northglenn, a more walkable city. And we talk about what other cities have done, Old Town Arvada and stuff like that. And we've talked about that we're also competing for residents and people, when they're out shopping on where they want to live and where they want to raise their family, bring these types of factors into play. And so it's going to be an important asset for Northglenn going forward. And I think it's going to be important to figure out how do we get the word out that we are creating a walkable community, that we are creating that type of atmosphere that people want to be a part of.
Sure.
And so this is a huge asset, and I just think that how do you use that asset to the best of its ability is something that we have to look into.
That's great, thank you.
And I also agree a lot with what Joe is saying, where I think it'll point out the areas that need the most concern and the most work. And if nothing else is implemented from the plan, at least hopefully we would work on those areas that are either safety issues. Yeah, so that's what I think the plan would do.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So for this one, what I'm thinking is we've pre-populated the list. If you've already answered similar, we can just say pass on. But what we did is we identified some different themes that came up in our first meeting, and and also how did this plan come to be? And those have been listed. So public health, social equity, economic development, safety, additional transportation choices, and quality of life. And what we want to ask you is how important are these different variables to you as we work through this project? And as we start to develop the goals and the vision for this project, these will be very important to inform that. So we wanted to get your feedback early on. So I'll start here, and I think the easiest is, actually, maybe if we could just read through the list.
Sure.
And they can indicate what their preference is.
Right, so I'll just read them and you can mark them. So somewhat important on the first one. Neutral on the second one. Somewhat important. Very important, very important, very important.
And what I'll ask is, the one that you said very important for, if you could just give me a bit of feedback about why you think that is. Maybe your top one if you have multiple that are very important.
Well, I guess I'll go for my very important, the additional transportation choices. I just think it's the way it is now. Not everybody wants to drive. People are wanting alternatives, plus I think someone else mentioned light rail, fast tracks, and how people will get there. So I think additional transportation choices was important to me for that reason. And then safety is always important, so it's very important. And then quality of life, I just think it improves so many things, so.
Thank you.
My two very important is safety and additional transportation choices. Everything else is somewhat important.
Thank you.
Unless I have to tell you what I really think is important.
No,
The safety part is huge to me because of, you've already heard a lot about what we have in our city, so that is huge for me. The other thing is economic development. Those are my faves. The rest of them get my answers.
Skip, and I think safety obviously, and then quality of life, making it more attractive to the generation.
Great, thank you.
Top three are somewhat, bottom three are very.
I'm very on all of them.
Very on all of them, okay. Very.
See, we should be
Well, if you come up with more than, say, 10 for any one person.
Yeah. I think I understand. So I don't think my answers are up there, but I'm,
Kyle, didn't you say very for all of them?
All of them.
oh,
Yeah.
Sorry.
so I'm just going to say I'm very on all of them except economic development and additional transportation choices I put as somewhat important.
Okay. So I think there's a couple interesting takeaways from that chart now. One of them is only 2 got votes in the not very important and the not important columns. So what that tells us is that we really need to be thinking about all these different facets of developing the plan. And then as we're thinking about all those different facets, which ones are the ones that we really need to put emphasis on? And that comes to safety, additional transportation choices, and quality of life. And it's really great to hear that feedback because we definitely think that we can use this plan to develop solutions that work towards all of those goals. So that's exciting to hear that that's our call to order here. So thank you for that. And this one is going to be a bit of a tag team between Ashley and myself, but what we wanted to kind of show you is how does the mobile map work. So name up to 3 areas the planning team should focus for potential bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure improvements. And so how this will play out when we're asking the public, just so you can get a sense of that, is if you were to say, oh, the intersection of on Grant, for instance, then we'll place a post-it on that intersection. You can write what the actual improvement is going to be. So here it's about, initially we looked at what are our broader goals, and now we're trying to zero in what are some of the priorities that we should be thinking about. We definitely heard feedback that, well, the priorities will come out through the planning process, and we may not know them yet. But if there's things that you think at this early stage we should be thinking about, that's what this question is trying to get at. So some of the areas which people have already provided feedback are up there. And so you don't have to name all 3 if you can just think of 1 or 2 or
Hotspots.
hotspots, exactly. So zeroing in.
Yeah, so I agree with the 112th. I think it's really important. I stress that both even now with walking, but I think also just the vehicle traffic that's on 112th and soon to be more. And then as we started this exercise, when the survey came out, I started realizing just because I commute on Melody Drive so much, that's a real situation with bikes that are either in the road or on the sidewalk, and I never paid attention to it before until this came up. And then Community Center Drive, where with the bridge and the Justice Center, I think that's really something that we have to pay attention to. I know some of us on council have dealt with the situation with the old pedestrian crosswalk that we took out, and then is something going to need to go back in, and then the bridge can, you only have people walking on one side of it. And so I think just all of that, and Becky, you said something about the connectivity to Melody. That's one of the big ones for me.
That's great.
And I agree with Civic Center and definitely the intersections. I mean, it's amazing when you get to an intersection that people either not aware of how to cross or when to cross, when to turn left, when to turn right, or when to sit still. I think that needs some attention. I'm not sure what that is, but intersections is definitely, if you're talking about safety, that's a big issue.
Sure. Yes.
It'll stop.
So it sounds like improvements and potentially even education awareness too.
Yeah, it's all.
Yeah, and that's a great point, and as you'll see in the existing conditions analysis, when we ran the crash data, most of the crashes are occurring at intersections.
112th is up there, but I just thought of one that I didn't put on mine, and that would be the school zone areas, which I guess is under safety, but the school zones. If
So
we're gonna have,
school zones in general?
you know how I feel about that.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I clarify. So, is there any particular one that is a concern for you?
Oh, of course. My whole stem, my stem, and Mallee.
Sorry, one more time?
Holstrom, stem, and Mallee. Because as we start rolling this out, you know, and kids are out on their bikes more, yada, 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 they're going to want to ride, you know, their bikes to school or whatever. We have a very low number of kids riding their bikes to school at Mallee right now. Maybe you can count them on both hands. And it's because it's not safe. Well, okay, part of the reason could be because it's not safe for them to ride on the bikes there.
Thank you.
You're so polite. You're welcome.
I believe I said civic center, the intersections and the neighborhoods, I think. Just everything that's up there.
I have nothing, because I think that's what the study should be telling us.
Sorry.
So I have nothing, because I think that's what the study should be telling us. where we
Thank you.
focus.
Thank you.
Corridors and intersections, 112 would be the priority.
And when you say corridors, are you thinking busy,
Corridors, I'm thinking like 112 is a corridor. Irma,
bigger
Valley,
roads,
it's not a
busier?
name, it's what would be.
The collector streets?
Collector streets.
Gotcha,
Would
okay.
be like corridors to me.
Yeah, and another finding from the crash analysis is that most of the crashes are occurring on our arterial and collector roadways. But as a percentage of all roads, you have many more local roads. So that's something that substantiates why we should zoom in on those areas too.
I wrote down schools, and then the same thing, kind of what Marcy said with Community Center Drive and the bridge. I feel like that's going to have to be figured out here real quick, and then the connectivity of Civic Center and Marketplace. And so I think that kind of falls in line with Community Center Drive and the bridge, because we only have a sidewalk on one side of that street right now.
And I would also have to say 112 where fast tracks will be going in, mostly because there are no pathways. There's no infrastructure to get there right now. We need that. And then really what Antonio said, I think education is so important. People don't even know the rules of the roads anymore. And so when you get to arterials and intersections, it's ridiculous. And I don't know how you ever cure that, so.
If I can ask, 4 comments on 112. Are they all surrounding the station, or are there other concerns or issues with 112?
Mine is the sidewalk, why you didn't do both sides, I just really, from someone who lived there, who lives there and watched it happen, yeah. I mean, we should have sidewalks on both sides of that street.
There is no plan for sidewalks on
I know.
both sides of the street.
That's what my city councilman told me when I was yelling at him one day. But somehow, we have to figure out a way to do it. I mean, there has to be a way to do that.
And I guess for me with 112, that really starts like at Washington. I don't feel like that part is New York State even right there. I'm not actually sure that the left side has a sidewalk at all over there, right?
You do have to have.
You
At
have it
Washington?
on the north side.
On the north
Yes.
side? Oh, okay. So I think for me, it's just where it starts there and all the way down. There's like a crisscross thing that ends up happening, especially now. I think that adds to some of the safety issues that we were even talking about at 112 in Irma previously, where like kids were standing on snowbanks and stuff at that intersection. Now we just kind of have them crossing both sides of the street.
I almost question the need for a double turn lane there, because that causes a lot of congestion. When that double turn lane comes around, that second lane on 112 is only there for 2 clicks of your eyelashes, you know, and then it's gone. But I'm sure there's a reason that, y'all have.
I know this is for council input, but I got one I was waiting for people to mention. We already talked a little bit about Irma and that mid-block crossing. The beauty of our community is the ditches and the trails that run through it, but of course, those don't follow intersections. All these mid-block crossings that we have throughout the community, I think, need to be addressed. We try to do that on occasion. I think of the pedestrian refuge area on Huron between 112th and like Vantage Point. That was a relatively new construction within the last 10 years because of the mid-block crossing. I think what we've done at Larson and 112th, I think also the Highline Canal crossing at Malley, where we've had pedestrian injuries at that location. We actually installed a traffic signal and kind of relocated the trail to try to line up at the intersection. And so I think those are things we're definitely going to need to look at, because I think that's a lot of the safety issues, is that people come to the edge of the trail and they hit a road and they're like, well, now where do I go? You know, do I go across? And there's no crosswalk. And
Right.
So
Make it intuitive and safe to cross.
Exactly.
Mid-block crossings.
Can I add one thing on that too, around some of our mid-crossing points? I mean, we saw it happen right here on Community Center Drive. I mean, we did this beautiful new brick and rock, but the median, but we took out the crosswalk that people intentionally want to use, so they make their own crosswalk. And then we made it really pretty, but we also made it an obstruction for driving. So I know we're not talking about actual development here, but you know, if this doesn't happen in the next 3 years, I won't bring it up. So I think it's really important that we consider, in this attempt to make the city look good, that we also think a little bit more about the functionality of it.
Sure.
yeah, because there are social trails that people are going to take, regardless of what barriers we put in the way, right? So.
That's why you put railings up and you run to different directions.
Hot wire.
That's right. Shock.
So let's build a wall.
Right.
All right, well, that was a great conversation. Thank you for that feedback. So the next question, so now we're focusing, so we looked at goals, overall goals, we looked at zooming in a little bit, what are our priorities, and now we want to think about, okay, we get to the end of the plan, our recommendations are done, and we want to think about implementation. So these are the next steps. You have a document, what do we want to do with it? So question is, how important is implementing the Connect Northglenn recommendations? So we'll come up with linear recommendations for improving walking and bicycling, intersection, mid-block crossing recommendations. How important is it that the city follows through and implements those? So we'll just go through each of the different categories. You can just indicate what you think.
So sort of have two answers for this.
Sure.
Part of me is somewhat important because I see the value and what it does and what we're trying to do for the city. But I go to the neutral because I agree with Kim. I think we have a ton of things going on right now. And I always kind of question the ability of staff to stay on top of everything we constantly keep putting at you all. And I don't want to just do it because it's been on our plan for a while and it dropped down on the list for us at the council retreat. So I just have concerns that maybe what we need to do is look at the study or the plan and see what little things we can be implementing, because I'm just not sure staff has the capacity to do something grander.
And one of the things that we'll do to make it easier for staff is actually prioritize those recommendations so that you can look at what are our short-term projects, what are our lower cost projects, and actually develop concepts for priority projects. So that gives a head start on those so that they can drive it into that implementation phase. So thank you.
That's pretty much where I'm at. They're very important and they're somewhat important. When you say very important, what is that weighed against? What's it going to cost? And then you find out what it's going to cost, and it becomes somewhat important. But it's got to be one or the other.
Okay. And I think something as we go around the room to think about, at the beginning, we went over overall goals. And then I think what we recognize is that this plan aligns with what those overall goals are: economic development, safety, the look and feel of the community. So as we kind of go through this exercise, should the priorities and the funding and capital improvement budget be reoriented to think about bicycle and pedestrian transportation? Just a question. Don't need specific answers, but that's something that we can work through as part of this project.
Mine is, I think it's very important, but again, we have so much that we're spending money on that I just can't see how we can get there with staff and funding and things like that, but it is very important to the city. At the end of the day, I'll let you know.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll see with the plan too. Not everything is a capital improvement project. You know, there may be some low-cost things that Public Works can do, or if a road is already scheduled for repainting, then maybe we could add bike lanes or share roads or something. Or it may be, you know, consider implementing a new policy or new language in your zoning code to be more walk and bike friendly. You know, institute kind of, if you put in a new sidewalk with development, that it needs to be 5 feet or 8 feet instead of 3 feet or things like that. So I obviously understand our cost constraints and stuff too, but I just want to make sure everyone understands that all of the implementation is not just going to be focused on kind of big ticket items, and there's going to be kind of a mix, like Sam said, with the low cost, shorter term, and there's also grant funding available for some of these things. But having an adopted plan puts the city in a much better position to go after some of those things. So.
Well, I think it's very important, but I'll tell you at the end.
Awesome, I put mine on very important.
So I thought this was a very unfair question for us, because, and my answer at this point is not very important, because I have absolutely no idea what any of the recommendations are. So I'm not gonna say, this is, we have to do this, but I don't know what any of them are, I have no context. And it sounds like you already have ideas, because you keep talking about how you're gonna come up with all of these different, you have these recommendations, so you know there's gonna be low cost, there's gonna be some CIP, so do you already have a plan, and we just don't know it, or are you just thinking that there's gonna be these areas?
No, that's our goal. That
Okay.
we'll come up with prioritized recommendations and different scales.
Right.
Okay.
And
Thank
so
you.
based on our experience working in other cities on similar plans, that's typically what happens.
Okay.
So, but we could definitely ask this question again at the end of the project when those are in front of you. So thank you.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think it's all very important, but it's all a timing issue. And I think a lot of it could be, or some of it could be coordinated with any development or redevelopment that comes along and kind of meld it into that area, you know. If we do like the civic center or something here, you know, we can work on this street, or, you know, as far as this is concerned, Carl's Farm Gary would be a perfect example. If they develop that all up, you know, something that has to do with this be implemented into that plan as well.
Okay.
I think it's very important. I think that otherwise, why would we be spending the amount of money on this study that we're spending? It's not an inexpensive study by any means, so I think it's an important thing for our city, and I'm hoping it just doesn't gather dust on a bookshelf somewhere.
And I think somewhat important because, well, I feel it's important. I think it will, and I said this already, it'll point out the areas with big safety issues and public concern, which I believe should probably be addressed. But the sticker shock of getting some projects done sometimes, just as we implement some of the school signage projects that we've done in the past, I think we just have to be realistic about the cost of what we're doing.
Great. Well, thank you for that feedback, and I definitely think that we can orient how we think about recommendations based on that feedback. Thinking about costs as well. It needs to be thought of from the beginning so that when we get to the end of the plan, it's in line with what your expectations were. So we'll do both of those.
This one might be a little harder.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but we went a little bit of a conversation
Sure, yeah. So maybe what we could do, instead of, the original question was we wanted to think about what following initiatives do you think would make Northglenn a safer and friendlier place to walk? And we were,
Let me throw something out. What I might suggest is that, I think what we can do is focus on this conversation, but for those that didn't fill out the survey, is to perhaps take a moment to do this step. That would probably help and make it a lot easier as far as facilitation goes. So,
Yeah, so I think they each have it, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
even if you want to do it here and just fill it out and then give it to us by the end of the an option too.
Or you can
but-
just take the marker at the end.
Right.
Yeah, and while folks are thinking about that, maybe we can just, what is your number one on that list? And it's a relatively lengthy list, but if there's something that sticks out, want to just mention that, and then in the meantime, folks can fill out the answers too.
Want them in number order or just what we picked?
Just the one, just your top pick.
Oh,
We
so
can
my
just
top
go
pick
with the top
was
pick, yeah.
improving crossing conditions at intersections.
Okay, so that's consistent with what we've heard, so. Great.
Did you do this already? No, she did.
Above integrate off-street trails.
Number 2, number 4, in that order. Coming down, the second one and the fourth.
Great. So focusing on education and enforcement. All right.
Any other topics for anybody else that they want to comment on?
Can't remember what I chose on this one. But I think improving the crossing conditions sounds like me.
Okay.
Anyone else?
What are you looking for right now? Are you looking for 1 through 5?
No,
Just
just,
kind of your top, just as a conversation, you guys can mark them and give them or come up with a marker if you want to.
I'm improve crossing conditions and then wayfinding signage.
The top one.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I thought we had 11 options for some reason on the survey, but maybe we didn't. I don't know. I think it was, I like the improved crossing conditions intersections after reading it. I did.
Jill?
My top priority would be number 2, well, education. Second would be wayfinding signage. Third would be crossing conditions, and I have no 4 or 5.
okay.
So we did it, and mine would be also in improving crossing conditions.
Great.
Hey, just ask a question because it's on here and I haven't had any of the residents that have brought up concerns about widths of sidewalks or in particular, outside of the ADA concerns. And I don't know, Jim, if I've had any of these in the year that you've been here, but I know Washington has been of concern and Malley has been of concern in a couple parts of Huron. I know, Brooke, you're aware of some of those. So as we're doing this, is that one of the things that we look at is the ADA? And then how does that relate into some of those bus connections that are there as well? Because that's where some of those concerns have been.
I think what we want to get to is identifying those types of issues so that we can figure out where the priority corridors are to look at that ADA accessibility. And I think by a function of lighting sidewalks, you can perpetuate that to begin with. So whether it may not be ADA driving the issue per se, as much as it is just trying to create improved access where it makes the most strategic sense. So like when you talk about Melody, it's a very wide road. It has enough right away there to widen the sidewalks and perhaps put in bike lanes and add parking and everything else. Because we've looked at it and I actually ride it, so I'm familiar with it. But I think that there's opportunities like that throughout the community, and what we will do is synthesize the the council feedback, with the public feedback, with the technical analysis, and kind of synthesize that and see what perks up. And then when we share that information with you guys, you can say, well, hey, you know, I've had this additional comment here, maybe that should be a point of emphasis, or you did, something's not recognized that we can then further evaluate.
Maybe I'll go back and get those spots that
That'd be
High
great.
falls on and maybe put them on that map and see
Yeah.
if
That would
anybody
be
else likes it.
fantastic.
'Cause I'd be interested in seeing how many others might acknowledge that spot.
Great. Just a couple of comments I'll make on the feedback that we heard tonight. Obviously, we're hearing important but want to be fiscally responsible with this approach. And I think, and Kim's comment about, is there a preconceived idea? I think that what we have is, when we come out with this final project, one of the things that we're really going to try to leverage is outside funding sources. To what Ashley was talking about earlier, is that there's really a lot of funding opportunities out there that might actually help implement this so that it actually isn't a fiscal burden. And obviously, the thing that we also need to work on is striking the balance on, staff workload and implementation of that. I think another thing is that when you hear us talking about some of these things that we talk about in terms of implementation, it's the tools in the toolbox that we talk about in terms of, is it a Charo lane versus a dedicated bike lane versus widened sidewalks. And so when we talk about those things, it's not that we're suggesting that that's the end game, but more just that those are the tools that we would articulate as solutions to those types of problems.
I was going to add one other thing. Our Public Works Department, we just instituted a new traffic calming policy. And so I think we've got about 36 locations where people have filed issues, if you will, with us. And then that kicks off a speed study. So I think we should make sure and share that information if you don't have it already. So, good. Because I think that'll help populate the geography too.
Right, and we have other department stakeholders involved in the process that help us with that information, with the PD, with accident history, Public Works with, looking at the streets and the striping programs, and then we're also working with parks because they have the existing network, and we're trying to, as to Jim's point about these mid-block crossings or where these trails intersect, is really trying to enhance those connections and how we can make those work better over time.
So something I don't want to get lost during all of this, so it's another study that we're doing. We have a gazillion studies going on right now, it seems like. But we also have the school zones, and we're already implementing safety around all the school zones. Yes, it's taken a while because we can only do a certain number each year, but there's been a talk tonight about school zones and how important those are. We're already doing that. So I hope that what we're doing there currently is going to be looked at during this study, and so that our current efforts and those things that we've already done aren't going to be wasted. And I don't want to see new recommendations come out of this that just kind of redoes what we've already decided on and we've already
Right.
spent. So just to.
Sure, and that's a great point, because I think one of the things that we want to do with this plan is to help leapfrog the school zone effort and really trying to figure out a programmatic way to do the safe routes to school and integrate that into this exercise, because we think that there's other funding opportunities out there that instead of picking one off at a time, we might be able to figure out a better prioritization, and also working with Adams 12, but more importantly is to try to find other sources of funds to help accelerate that implementation.
You have one more question?
We have one more.
So eager.
So yes, the final question, in terms of creating more bicycle and pedestrian friendly community, what does success look like to you?
I think success to me looks like more people are riding their bikes
That's great.
and using it. I mean, I just want to see more people walking and riding instead of me driving.
Sorry, I forgot there was one more question I was trying to think about.
ROLA ideas. No, I agree with you. I mean, proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
And just, if it's something that's working and we're making progress and people like it, then we keep doing it.
agree with that.
Really ideas.
I'm with the team. I have absolutely no idea what success is gonna look like until we get to it and we have some choices to make.
I'm debating whether or not I should even blurt this out. But success is making everybody happy. So I think we can live with the fact that it won't be successful. So,
But that's true,
But we could work towards a goal.
unfortunately.
a majority.
Majority, yeah.
There we go.
Okay. More than 50%.
I agree with what Marcy said, but another thing that I think would make me think this is successful is if it created a buzz for Northwood.
Okay.
We really got people talking about what we were doing as a community.
In the end, I'm not sure either what success will be, but for me, success from the start will be a huge community input on this. And I'm kind of already feeling a buzz. People I talk to actually already know about it, so that's kind of interesting, whereas a lot of times they don't. And I think just us sharing where the public meetings will be all the time, we'll get more people there. But to me, it's successful when you get more than 30 people giving us input.
Great. Right.
You know, I want to change my answer to Kyle and Carol. I like those are both good answers.
Well, I really wanted to thank everybody for walking through all those questions and giving us your answers. So thanks for that. It's very, very helpful.
You're welcome.
Can I ask a question? though?
Sure.
Sorry, can you explain, you're doing the stakeholder staff walk audit. Can you explain, that's a 2-hour walk, what that entails and who the other stakeholders are besides for Adams 12?
Sure.
And then how it compares with the community walk audit?
Sure. So what we're going to do is more of a technical walk audit. So that's going to have staff, and we have a pretty broad stakeholder group. Ashley probably would have a better. So probably like 20.
I know someone from Smart Commute Metro North, I think a couple of representatives from Adams 12. Bicycle Colorado was coming to the bike audit, and I'm not sure if they're coming to the walk audit.
We can get you into those.
Yeah,
I think
I'd
we
be
should
interested to
yeah.
know, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so we tried to cast a pretty broad net of folks that are involved with development and community change in the city. So, because those are the ones that actually influence development. So what that will focus on is when we have a predetermined route. It's about a mile long, so we'll walk pretty slowly, and we'll look at the intersections. We'll say, is this up to ADA? And technically say yes or no, and then point out why not or why it is. And then we'll look at sidewalk widths and say, is this ADA or is this comfortable? So again, it's more of a technical focused conversation and educational, so you're all welcome. The other community walk audit is more experiential. So it's people that are coming to the public meeting. For the public meeting, we're having this optional audit, and we're trying to ask them, do you feel comfortable on this sidewalk? And that one's going to be more around City Hall. And if folks say no, we'll ask them why not. We're trying to get at some of the input, which they feel influences their level of comfort when walking. So
You said the technical one is a mile,
it's a mile walk.
and that's going to give you a feel for what the whole city is, do you think?
Yeah, it's a good point. So what we tried to do is pick a corridor which is representative of different contexts that you have in Northglenn. So Northglenn has commercial development where you have more frequent curb cuts, so we wanted to have that be part of it. More driveways to get into those. Northglenn has a lot of neighborhood schools, so the walk audit will walk along a neighborhood school. A lot of residential local streets. We wanted to have people experience what those residential streets look like, and then also an arterial. Having heavy traffic volumes crossing you. So no, we're not going to walk through the whole community, but we tried to pick an example that was representative of the different contexts.
More of a communication question. So Jim, do you know, or can we get a feel for how many people have signed up to receive the city e-newsletter stuff that we have? And are we planning on sending it out to that list? I mean, I don't even know how many's on there. I'm hoping several hundred. It would be good. And I think Debbie could include this in the business email newsletter, the link to this.
Yeah, Jill is going to next month. It won't be going out again before the community meeting, but it will go out before our online survey and the mapping tool kind of end. So it will be going in the business newsletter next month.
Okay, and then the email addresses that you're capturing from the website that you built, are those going back to the city?
They're coming to me.
But are we gonna capture those email addresses and be able to utilize them for future communications, or what's the plan for those?
Right now, it's in an Excel spreadsheet for this project specifically. But if there's a similar project or related project that we think it would be appropriate, I think we could look at that.
I think we should look at an opportunity to, whenever we're gonna ask people to give us an email address, to ask them if they wanna be subscribed to the city's email newsletter.
Sure.
And then that gets to Margot to import into the system. I mean, this goal of always trying to drive more email addresses for us.
That's a really great idea. I
Yeah, we
think
can
we
put a
could
checkbox.
easily add that, like a checkbox of if you want to be added to the other email list too, and I can just forward those. Great idea.
Any other comments or questions for the team? No? You guys want to say anything else? You're done? That's it? You have all the information you need from us for now?
For now.
Yes, thank you for your time
Thank
today.
you.
So we'll be back in a couple months, right, for
Yeah,
more discussion?
I think I mentioned earlier, I believe it's July 17th.
Second study session in July.
Yeah, we'll be coming back with kind of a summary of the recommendations and work with you guys to create some goals and the vision for the plan. So
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can you make sure that Margot gets some of this information on the city Facebook page, because none of it's, I haven't seen it. Jordan hasn't seen it.
Sure,
I mean,
absolutely.
I think it's imperative considering that we're going to try and get the wow for the food carnival. And
If nothing
I'm
else.
just
like,
gonna
we'll
do
always
1
email
minute
them,
snap
say,
and then
"Thank you
I'm
for
gonna be
signing
done.
up. Would you be interested?"
Why haven't we done this?
So I think there's always an option.
Why haven't we done,
Why isn't there anything linking it to the food truck carnival? Why have we not done anything? Why have we not been progressive?
so the Food Truck Carnival has a separate independent event website. We drive traffic to that site. But we didn't want to necessarily add city-related projects on that site.
No, I'm
So,
good with
but on
that.
our city Facebook page, absolutely, we can promote
Because
the public meetings and the other events that we have coming
The
up.
food truck and everything comes right up on our Facebook page. It kind of irritates me because one of my big things is that we're not getting enough public involvement. And now, let's see, the bike audit's on the 13th of May and my 28th wedding anniversary is on the next day. So I was just thinking that maybe if we could get some information out there, maybe we can get more of a participation, please, and thank you.
Absolutely.
Make sure you look for it.
What year is your anniversary?
Oh my God, it's 29.
So maybe that would help.
Good, glad you remember.
Thank you, Peter.
So we are working with Margot on that, and so we'll make, and John, so we'll make sure that that's more prominently on it, but we have been coordinating with Facebook.
Yeah,
Okay.
they did do a post, I believe, last week with the website link, but we can.
I did see that.
Definitely as the meeting comes closer, they'll be pushing out more notifications.
I think it's just a frequency thing. I mean, if people don't
Frequency.
scroll, I mean, what's the point of social media is repeating things.
Sure.
Exactly.
You can do that.
Yeah, and I think they mentioned we do have the ability to do like a boost or something. I'm not sure how it all works, but we have like a sponsored or a boost, and Margot did say that she thought this was an appropriate.
We have a budget for boosting,
Yeah.
I'm not sure how that works, but we have a budget for it.
Exactly, and Margot did say she was comfortable doing it, so I'm with you.
Good,
We can.
good.
I'm not sure how, but we can.
Okay. Council, any other items of interest tonight?
I didn't know if you want a public update on the pedicab. I was going to have Brooke stay for a second here, just as he's been working with CDOT on it. So CDOT notified us that as a result of the managed lanes project out here on I-25, that they would have to close the pedestrian underpass right outside our door here. during that process, we were very concerned about a closure during the food truck carnival, and so they committed to us that it would close for an intermittent period starting today for about 10 days, and then it would open again during the food truck carnival, so people would still be able to use the park and ride and access the event, and then the following Monday it would close again. And I believe it's going to finish up in May.
That's correct.
So it's a real short period of time, but what CDOT chose to do, recognizing there would be a mile loop to get around, they instituted what they're calling a pop-up pedicab system. And so they've got a couple people sitting out front our Veterans Memorial by the rec center. There are signs that says the trail is closed. And then they'll actually take people over to the park and ride and back and forth. So they did contact Thornton. Thornton, does go through part of their community on the north side of 120th, so they actually gave them a permit. We found out late last week that they had not contacted the city of Westminster, even though part of the project is in Westminster. And they had been contacting us, but we chose not to permit it, authorize it, or disapprove of it in any way. We're basically letting them do what they think they need to do to provide access to the pedestrians. And so we are concerned about the general safety because it is a construction zone up there on 120th. But again, we've received every assurance from CDOT that they're going to operate it safely. I don't know if you
So
have any-
they take all risk of transporting people?
That's correct.
That's correct.
And 2 people fit in those little cabs?
I haven't seen them, but yes, I
Yeah,
suppose so.
I doubt those guys can doubt more than 2 people.
They're actually going to have electric motor assists.
Oh, really?
On the bikes themselves.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm on board now, so I'll put in my application.
And all of you heard about it today probably because they did a very, very good job of earned media. It was on 479 and Fox. On their Twitter, 9 News was out here at 7 a.m. with a live shot.
I think it was in Denver Post.
Denver Post also, I saw a story in the Denver Post. So they've never really done this before, and so we're just concerned we're the guinea pig, and we didn't want to necessarily affix our name to it.
Thank you.
Speaking of safety, can you give council information on what our risk is for construction at the Union Justice Center? As I drove by, I'm seeing the huge mound of dirt and thinking, we have a construction fence there and that's great, but we're gonna have people jumping the fence and playing in the dirt. What is our risk?
I'll have to check with the city attorney, but they'd be trespassing if they come onto the property.
True, that doesn't mean people won't sue us.
That's absolutely true also, right?
So I was just curious, I hadn't thought about it before until I went by today and thought, it's not a really tall fence and yeah, we're gonna have people screaming they've been hurt over there, so that would be awesome, thank you.
Just without saying too much publicly, we're not operating in a grossly negligent fashion. We are doing our steps to secure the site, and so we do have government immunity in that
Right.
regard.
Right.
That's the extent of my armchair attorney
Right.
for tonight, so.
All right, any other questions? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you.